Digital gramophone makes no sense.
Hey guys, it's John, the Digital Gramophone. Here to do a quick video. This is an entry, contest entry for Motorik247, Motorik247. It's been really fun to see how many ways people say the channel name out there. I'm hoping that Alex will clear it up when he does his drawing. But you know, it doesn't matter. It's Alex's channel, right? So I am fairly new to Alex's channel. My buddy Dave at Local Bandography told me about his channel and mentions it a lot. Also, Bill, the Vinylverse, talks about Alex's channel a good bit. And so I have I've been watching videos. I don't know how long, but you know, I've gone backwards and watched some other ones, and it's a great channel, and he shows a lot of really cool, interesting stuff that I would never even think about, and it is not even on my radar whatsoever. Much like Rob, It Sounds Strange. I watch their videos but don't comment because I have nothing to add. And I'm not one of those folks that just comments, great video, and gives it a thumbs up and goes away. If I'm going to comment, I got something, at least that I feel is of value to comment with. But I've taken a lot of notes watching Alex's channel, and there may be 3 VC channels, at least I can count on one hand, VC channels out there where I actually take notes. And his and Rob, and some others that, you know, it doesn't matter. But so the contest is name your your 5 favorite jazz albums. So I have this plan to do like a top 200. And so I don't want to talk about my 5 favorite jazz albums, because I will be talking about them then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show, instead of showing my 5 favorite albums, I'm going to show 5 albums that will kind of tell a little bit of a story of my relationship with jazz. Because I am a jazz novice, and I really mean a jazz novice. I have jazz albums, but I probably don't even have 100, you know, which means that they don't even make up probably 10% of my vinyl collection, much less 10% of my entire music collection. So, you know, with that, I am going to, much like Andrew at Tales from the Crate, I'm not going to talk about Miles Davis either, because if I did, it would probably be 4 of these 5 albums that I was going to show. And then, of course, you know, we're not supposed to mention Coltrane or show Coltrane albums. I'm also not going to show Mingus because I like Mingus a good bit, and so I'm going to take him out of the mix, and that helped me kind of narrow it down and really kind of figure out how I'm going to approach this video and this particular contest entry, whether it's accepted or not. So what comes to mind when I think of this is that one of my really good friends in high school was a guitarist, and he and I both went to this magnet school. I guess you call it a magnet school, even though we only went there like half the day, called the Fine Arts Center in Greenville, South Carolina. I went for visual art, he went for music. And it was there that he really got into jazz and started learning a lot about jazz. And he decided to make me like a mix, you know, and he put some of the jazz guitarists that he was getting into at the time. You got to keep in mind, he was a junior in high school, I was a senior, so you know, he was getting into guys like Wes Montgomery, This guy, Grant Green, I think the other, I think he had, like Schofield, some Schofield was on the mix. But anyway, and in particular, this song, Cantaloupe Woman, this is Grant Green's His Majesty King Funk from, what is it, 67? I think 67 or 68. No. Well, it was recorded in 65. So it's 66, 67, whatever. And that was the first exposure I'd had to really jazz guitar at all. I was kind of listening to jazz on our local NPR, our local public radio station, like at night. And I would just put it on kind of as background music while I was drawing or whatever. And but not paying attention to any names whatsoever. It was just in the background. But it was really good stuff. It was, late 50s to mid 60s era jazz that they would play, thinking back on it now. But yeah, this was a big one, introducing me to Grant Green, and it really made me think about jazz in a little bit of a different way, So yeah, Grant Green, this is a great album. Everybody knows Grant Green. So from there, I went into college, still not immersed in jazz really, but it was in college that I spent probably more time, kind of had more of a phase with it, I guess. And it was during those years that I started to just kind of like, well, I'm going to get some of the classics, right? The albums that everybody knows. Kind of Blue, of course, was the very first one. And then, a couple of other Miles, Mingus, Coltrane, Monk, just albums by them. Also, some of the vocalists like Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Ella and Louie. I actually would have shown that album because I was obsessed with that album back then. But I don't have it on vinyl, so I'm keeping this to vinyl. So I decided to talk about discovering Nina Simone for the first time in college. And this is enough said. This is my favorite Nina, but it's one of my top, 4 or 5. Recorded live at Westbury Music Fair. Well, most of it. A couple of the tracks were actually, I think, studio recordings that they just edited in with the applause breaks from that set. Of course, the real oh wow moment on this one is Why the King of Love is Dead, which she wrote immediately upon finding out about Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, which happened a day before this performance. So they debuted it at this performance for the first time. It's just a powerful, powerful moment. Some of the Kanye West fans would be familiar with Do What You Gotta Do, which he sampled on one of the recent albums. So while I'm in college, there were a group of guys that were in the graphic design department. I studied graphic design while I was in college. And there were a few guys in that department that were into jazz. Their relationship with jazz kind of came from being huge fans of underground hip hop and electronic music and DJs like Kid Koala or Dan the Automator, DJ Shadow, and hip hop groups like Digable Planets and Jurassic 5 and of course The Roots. Early on, they were still an underground band. So a lot of those guys were big fans of this guy, Donald Byrd. And I love Donald Byrd. And I really, out of all jazz, I would say that I'm really a bigger fan of fusion stuff. I think it just, makes sense more to my particular taste. I love R&B and funk and particularly R&B. So, I really like also Byrd by Byrd is a favorite. But I'm showing Street Lady because this was the first Byrd album that I bought. I originally bought it on CD. Love Street Lady. This is 73 press. And on the blue label with the black B. I don't think I'm not sure if it's first. It's a 73 though. Around over 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, a coworker of mine told me he knew that I had some records and that I was kind of getting back into it. And we were having a discussion, and he asked me if I wanted his records, at least most of them. And he used to work at a radio station, so he had a lot of records from that gig, from that job. And I was like, sure, man, whatever. And he showed up to my house, my apartment, with at least 500, maybe 600 records, and just gave them to me for free. Now, this was, like I said, 16, 17 years ago. So the vinyl boom had not really come back yet. It wasn't, anywhere close yet. So to him, I was doing him a favor. I was taking these space wasters out of his house, and he was more than happy to give them to me. And really, really sweet guy. And yeah, he gave me those albums, and there was a ton of stuff in there. I actually sold, or traded in for credit, at least, 300 of them. But I still have probably about 100 to 150 of those albums that he gave me at the time. But before I did the trading in, I came across this album and was really struck more by the artwork. And I was like, this might be interesting. This is the Gary Burton Quartet Duster from 1967. I know enough about jazz to know that vibraphone vibes really aren't, considered very cool, right? Amongst the jazz community. That doesn't speak for everybody, but I've just heard in passing and in a conversation. But this album, when I put it on, I'd never heard anything like this. It's considered by a lot of writers to be technically the first jazz fusion album. It's just, I don't know, it's so quirky and inventive, all at the same time. And even though it has vibraphone and vibes, never sounds cheesy. Like it's the soundtrack to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or something, it's just really, really cool. And actually, even aside from the vibes, the real standout here is Larry Coryell on guitar. The guitar work on this is out of this world. Especially on the track 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just wild to me. And now I will say that I have to be in the right kind of frame of mind to put this on, because it is a lot of vibraphone all at once to take in. But still a very cool album, and I'm talking about this like people don't know about it, whatever. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows, or serious jazz collectors know about that album. So last, I'll talk about a newish album. This came out 4 years ago. I'm not one of those guys. I buy new music, so I'm not one of those guys that's like, this is a new album. It came out in 2011. Like, this came out 4 years ago. It's Kumasi Washington's The Epic. Just amazing piece of art. You know, I was familiar with Kumasi Washington from his work with Flying Lotus and Thundercat, and obviously was on Kendrick Lamar's incredible album from the same year in 2015. And I was reading so much about it, and I was just like, I've got to get it. I've got to get this album. It's like 174 minutes of music, and I'm still discovering things when I put this on. You really have to, you know, I mean, vinyl, you have to dedicate time to even just listen to vinyl, right? But you really have to dedicate time to this, which is very hard for me right now with 2 little ones running around and just a busy kind of schedule. But I stream this a good bit at work from time to time, and his newer album as well. And this, when I bought this, I had just kind of put down jazz for a while. As soon as I listened to it, it made me just go back and start pulling out all those jazz albums that I have, the jazz albums that I do have, the very few that I have, at least few compared to many of you. And I'm not a musician, so I'm not going to get into talking about the music itself, other than it's just, to me, otherworldly and also extremely accessible. You know, it's spacey, but it's not like Sun Ra, you know, and I love it for that. Just very, very, very fortunate to have Kumasi Washington around, and I'm sure he's exposing a whole new generation to jazz, which is very cool. That'll be it, guys. We'll talk to you later. Alex, thanks for hosting this contest. Again, I look forward to seeing more of your content, more note-taking, and I hope this wasn't a complete waste of your time.